Okay, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, whenever you may be listening to this here lecture. My name is Andrew Richardson. I am a current PhD student at the Teesside University in the School of Social Sciences, Humanities and Law. This is one of the classes I did back in November 2020 for some of the sport and exercise science students. What I'm doing is I'm going to be recording a number of the lectures I've done. So not only those students have a copy of them, but like other classes and cohorts within the university themselves have access to it. Going to be playing around with different recording pieces of software, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, WebEx, whatnot, just trying to see which ones give the best audio quality, and B, they allows me to create different file types and downloads, so I can upload it in a range of different softwares, that be on like YouTube, onto different websites, platforms, or they're easily shared via email and whatnot. So again, if there's any technical issues or anything to do with the sound, do make me aware at any point. So I'm trying this with a new set of headphones as well. So again, let me know if the sound quality is good enough or if it's quite poor. So yeah, we shall begin. So this year lecture is on doping and anti-doping, looking at the laws, the different types of drugs people may use, and the cases. So again, learn aims and objectives. So again, to make you all well what the current laws are that surround doping and anti-doping. Explore how dopers would try and dope and what the current anti-doping detection methods are and how they've evolved and changed since WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, came into effect. I've got a link in there for a drug test in action. We'll talk more about that when we come onto it. I'm looking at some of the current research and obviously historically look at state-sponsored doping as well. So the objectives are going to be developing a non-biased stance when looking at the different behaviors within sport and being made aware of what the culture and society viewpoints are of doping. So again, a little bit about me. So I did my sports science degree back in, started in 2013, finished 2016. Then went to my master's, then did my PGCE. So I'm currently a PhD student, as I said, and this is looking at the sedentary lifestyles in the Tees Valley. Again, this is set to end about October 2022. In terms of my background in relation to doping and anti-doping, I've done multiple anti-doping courses. I've helped conduct anti-doping drug tests for my former powerlifting federation. I've also done research into performance enhancing drugs as well, and that also includes image performance enhancing drugs too, and also into transgender sport as well. And I've also been a former international athlete and national coach, so I can see it from both angles of the coach and an athlete in terms of why people maybe feel pressured they want to use substance, or how we can encourage athletes not to dope. So again, there you go. So again, if this is going to be shown in the morning, this is kind of a rough lesson plan. That's how I would do it. But then again, since this is going to be an online one, and obviously there won't be any interaction with anyone. Some of these things can be removed, such as the breaks and whatnot. But then again, you can listen to this how you want to. So again, the first sort of 10-15 minutes of me opening up, explaining what we're doing and recapping any previous lessons work. Then going into detail what WADA is, what UK anti-doping or UKAD, as it's referred to. Then you have a 15-minute break. Then looking at how doping can occur, current research and history. Then another break. Then looking at state-sponsored doping in cases of athletes that have doped. Then the summary, wrapping it all up. Then the work for next week. Okay, so for this one here, I did this for Laura Fleming's class. So again, this opportunity for any like the other lecturers who may be listening here, if they want to recap anything for their own students, feel free just to add this into this point here too. So what is doping and anti-doping? Well, doping can be defined as the use of a substance, such as an anabolic steroid or erythropoietin, or techniques such as blood doping to illegally improve athletic performance. Anti-doping can be defined as opposing or prohibiting illegal doping, such as blood doping or the use of anabolic steroids or growth hormones to improve athletic performance. Cheating can be defined as it is generally used for the breaking of rules to gain unfair advantage in a competitive situation. And then gamesmanship can be defined as the use of aggressive or dubious tactics such as psychosocial intimidation or disruption of concentration to gain an advantage over one's opponent while still observing the rules in a game. And then finally, PED can be defined as performance enhancing drug. So the world governing body on preventing doping is WADA. And again, WADA put the links in front of the screen here now for you. Again, there's a little YouTube clip there as well, which gives you like an overview of what WADA does. But WADA are the main national governing body in terms of combating and trying to beat doping. And so they've got a brilliant site, a whole range of things. We'll be going through this in a little bit more detail as the slides progress on. And then they would go out and publish free documents, reports, policies, stats based on sport, by drug, or by country. You know, what's the frequency of different types of drugs being used, what sports are the most popular for being caught, and obviously what countries have got a high prevalence rate of dopers in it. So WADA was established in 1999 as an international independent agency composed and funded equally by the sport movement and governments around the world. Its key activities include scientific research, education, development of anti-doping capacities, and monitoring of the World Anti-Doping Code. And this document combines all anti-doping policies in all sports in all countries, and this is revised every year to improve it. Pardon me. Their main vision is a world where all athletes can participate in a doping-free sporting environment. Their mission is then to lead a collaborative worldwide movement for doping-free sport. And the reason why WADA came about was after the events in the world cycling in the summer of 1998, the IOC, or the International Olympic Committee, decided to convene a world conference on doping, bringing together all parties involved in the fight against doping. And this was held at the first World Conference on Doping in Sport held in Lausanne, Switzerland, on February 2nd to the 4th, 1999. And this is where the Lausanne Declaration on Doping in Sport was created. And this initial document provided the creation of an independent international anti-doping agency to be operational from the Olympic Games in Sydney in the year 2000. So what's part of the world anti-doping community? Well, it's got a range of like groups. So you've got athletes, that makes sense because again, they're the ones who participate in the sports. You've got the international federations, they're the ones that would make the rules, set the competition calendar for all the sports the athletes would compete in. Then you've got the national anti-doping organizations, or NADOs. So that for us in the UK, that'll be the UK anti-doping. Then you've got regional anti-doping organizations. So in terms of the UK anti-doping, they'll be split into England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, whatnot. You've got Olympic and Paralympic committees, major event organizations, governments, laboratories, and the pharmaceutical industry. The reason why the pharmaceutical industry would be involved in it is because they would help to create machines or testing equipment that would either catch out people or find the better ways of, detecting small trace samples, whatnot, or from the other side, make the national government bodies, the National Anti-Doping Agency aware of potential medications out there that, even though if they were taken not to be used to enhance sport and performance, they may also have some sort of a sporting benefit, perhaps. So that's why we've got like our banned substance lists or prohibited list in competition at all times or out of competition as well, which we'll be going on to later on as well. Then lastly, we've got the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So that's really our sports law. So they obviously they would also decide on big cases in terms of what's the correct punishment for athletes or maybe coaches or coaching staff and whatnot. So a little bit more about anti-doping community. WADA's funding is sourced equally from Olympic movement and governments around the world. Olympic movement has a policy of making payments to WADA only when governments make their payments matching dollar for dollar contributions. The WADA statutes require that annual contributions be received by WADA no later than December 31st of each year for the following year. And WADA's funding was decided through this governmental process, whereas the governments agreed to fund 50% of WADA's budget. It was decided that for the 5 Olympic regions of the world, WADA's regional budget for the governments was agreed to be apportioned as follows: Africa 0.5%, Americas 29%, Asia 20.46%, Europe 47.5%, and Oceania 2.54%. Okay, so the WADA code. So the code is the core document that harmonizes anti-doping policies, rules, and regulations within sport organizations and among public authorities around the world. It works in conjunction with 6 international standards, which aim to foster consistency among anti-doping organizations in various areas. These standards include the International Standard for Testing and Investigations, the International Standard for Laboratories, International Standard for Therapeutic Use Exemptions, International Standard for the Prohibited List, International Standard for the Protection of Privacy and Personal Information, and the International Standard for Code Compliance by signatories. So a little bit more, in addition to the standards mentioned, 2 new international standards are set to come into force in January 2021 alongside the 2021 World Anti-Doping Code and related suite of standards. These are the International Standard for Education and the International Standard for Results Management. So again, I got a link attached there so you can read up a little bit more about them. Okay. So the first little task for you, if you're listening in, would be on some paper you have there on the side, write down as many known performance-enhancing drugs and their function. By function, I mean what you think they do. And then obviously give yourself 5-10 minutes to then write as many as you can possibly think of. Then once done, just click on provide pressing play here and then continue with the rest of the slides. So I won't be actually making you wait 5-10 minutes here to actually do it. Okay, so just pause now, write down your answers, then unpause and then continue on. Okay, so you've thought about all of the different types of potential performance enhancing drugs there, so we're going to go into the prohibited list. So since 2004, and as mandated by the WADA code, WADA has published an annual list of prohibited substances and methods. This list, which forms one of the 6 international standards, identifies the substances and methods prohibited in and out of competition and in particular sports. These substances and methods on the list are classified by different categories, e.g. steroids, stimulants, gene doping, whatnot. And again, we've got the link there which breaks them down in more detail. Now, moving on to the World Anti-Doping Intelligence and Investigations. So in 2015, new provisions to the WADA code gave staff the ability to initiate its own investigations. Both the Pound Independent Commission and the McLaren Independent Investigation are a result of these new powers and have lifted the veil on systemic doping activities. These groundbreaking investigations allowed WADA and the rest of the sports world to distinguish rumour from fact. So again, very, very useful powers in also uncovering mass doping programs in countries or within teams. And the dedicated team is committed to ensuring that WADA's intelligence and investigations are conducted with utmost professionalism and confidentiality. Continuing on, the intelligence investigations team have stages to look at each case of suspected doping, which they will collect samples, reports, analyze the samples, information collected, investigate with other national doping organizations and teams, national law enforcement, conclude their findings, and then train athletes and coaches to further promote any sort of anti-doping behavior and being proactive to any sort of behavior that may occur in the future. And again, I've got another link there for some more information. So some of the more famous WADA anti-doping investigations have created the following documents. So the Mitchell Report in United States of America Baseball, where professional players were brought before Congress to testify and discuss one of their national sports being rife with anabolic steroid use. Independent Commission Report of 2016 looking at doping within athletics and the country of Russia. And then obviously McLaren Report of late 2016, which showed the mass state-sponsored doping operation by Russia to sweep the medals at the Sochi Winter Olympics in 2014. So again, further on with this intelligence and investigations ultimately leads to athletes or teams or coaches going to court. So since 2004, when the first anti-doping code came to force, a number of legal decisions have been rendered applying the rules of the code by the Court of Arbitration of Sport, or CAS, as well as other internal tribunals of international federations and national anti-doping organizations. As part of its responsibility to monitor code compliance by its signatories, or they're the countries who then signed it, and the national government bodies of sports who signed it as well. WADA has a right of appeal against any decision rendered under the code. So again, I put another couple examples of cases there. So one of the more famous ones is CAS and WADA versus Alberto Contador. So one of the famous cyclists from the Tour de France. Again, his case, why he's saying he's innocent, what's the evidence put forward by WADA and CAS. And again, below there's a whole resource collection from WADA in terms of different cases as well. Always quite useful to see, at this level, what they're actually looking for in the evidence they're presenting. Again, it's just another one here that I'm following with interest anyway. This is the CAS and IAAF versus Caster Semenya on her legality to compete within the female category. This has been back and forth exchange between the two parties, and this is the update of this here is it's now been escalated for Caster taking her case to the European Court of Human Rights. And obviously, if you wish to hear more about this and kind of the backstory to it, I put a link to it on my own blog, which explains the reasoning behind this. And again, this is to do with the argument that Caster Semenya has got a higher level of natural testosterone than other female athletes, which may give her like an unfair advantage. But however, she isn't doping; she's just naturally more athletic. And obviously she would have a higher level of natural testosterone. This could be due to a range of things. Again, still a lot of speculation around it. However, it's going to and from, and the fact that they're not allowing to compete, some may argue this is against her natural ability as an own athlete. And obviously, if she is allowed to compete, she'll miss out probably her last chance to compete at the games here. With that games would have been 2020, but due to COVID, that's been delayed to 2021. But that's even if we're still going to have a games due to COVID. So then we'll have to wait and see. So then the last one is obviously currently, again, still being heavily debated, is the International Olympic Committee IOC Transgender 2015 policy. So this was meant to be updated for the 2020 Games, but then was delayed, not just to COVID, but because the panel couldn't agree on anything. And again, there's a lot of conflicting evidence on both sides in terms of what's right, what's not. Should we include everyone regardless of potential health and safety risks? Is this promoting fair sport when there's a clear size, strengths, and muscle mass advantage for one gender, one athlete versus the other, what sports are at more risk, what sports aren't a risk to this. So again, very, very hot topic at the moment. Myself and Dr. Mark Chen, we did publish a paper on this, criticizing a systematic review on their stance, which can be found here. And again, we're more than happy to talk more and more about this if you want to just get in touch. So again, next task. Again, once you hear the question, pause it, write down your notes, have a few minutes to think about it, then unpause it. So task 2, do you think doping in sport, whatever the type of method, should be classed as breaking the law? And that should be breaking the law within your own country. Okay, so pause and then write down the answer and then unpause, and then we will then continue on. Okay, so you've all written down answers if you think doping should be classed as a breaking the law offence. So what are WADA's anti-doping rule violations, or ADRVs for short? As you've probably seen different documents, is how they are addressed as. So you've got 2.1 to 2.11 here. So what the first one is, you got presence of prohibited substance or its metabolites or markers in an athlete's sample. So that's obviously, let's say someone took a urine sample from an athlete and they found some anabolic steroids, or like by anabolic steroids, they found the chemical formula for one of them in the family of anabolic steroids. So they would find let's say a androgenic metabolite in the urine. Again, that's what they're meaning. Next one, use or attempted use by an athlete of a prohibited substance or prohibited method. So that's they were caught in the act or caught trying to do it. Evading, refusing, or failing to submit a sample for collection is an offence because you're avoiding it. Whereabouts failures, so where you're not actually telling your national governing body where you are, where you should be, so you can be tested. Tampering or attempted tampering with any part of doping control. So that's like obviously trying to break the bottle, trying to let's say move your urine for someone else's. So again, you're trying to alter the results of it. Possession of prohibited substances and prohibited methods, again, that could be more an athlete holding on stuff for another athlete or coach as well, or you being in the room and helping out with it. Then again, there's the ones closely linked to it. That's number 7, trafficking or attempted trafficking in any prohibited substance or prohibited method. 2.8, administration or attempted administration to any athlete in competition of any prohibited method or prohibited substance, or administration of attempted administration to any athlete out of competition of any prohibited method or any prohibited substance. That is prohibited out of competition or assisting, encouraging, aiding, abetting, covering up, or any other type of complicity involving an anti-doping rule violation or any attempted anti-doping rule violation. So in short, if you're involved at any level of being in comp, out of comp, pre-comp, in terms of assisting, encouraging, aiding, abetting, covering up, you'll be involved and you'll be classed as given an ADRV. Okay. Then 2.9 is being complicit in it. 2.10, a prohibited association. And then 2.11 is a new one coming in, is intimidation of a whistleblower fellow athlete who reports on doping. So again, that's if, let's say, football team athletes, group of players are known to be cheating. Some of the other players inform anonymously to their national anti-doping agency that we believe that these guys are cheating. They will then go on and investigate, and they'll see if those athletes who are cheating start intimidating other players. That will then class as an anti-doping rule violation as well. So the current laws on doping, why should we regulate drugs and doping? Well, it's an unfair advantage to athletes, it's a danger to health and other competitors, and damages the integrity, image, value, and spirit of sport. Certain drugs are illegal to have in sport competitions. However, not all countries treat breaking anti-doping rule as a criminal offence. E.g., anabolic steroids are classed as a Class C in the UK, which meaning I can possess them without having a prescription. However, if I do intend to sell or distribute, I will get arrested for it. But depending on other countries, the punishment can be more severe as well, which you can do jail time for. There we go. So Interpol work very closely with WADA and other national doping organizations to track down dopers and those who would sell, traffic illegal substances. Again, got a link up there with Interpol and how they deal with anti-doping cases. Then the FBI in America have in the past helped WADA and USA Anti-Doping, or USADA as it's known, to track down dopers such as Lance Armstrong, the most famous one perhaps. And recently they busted a group of horse trainers back in early 2020 for doping. And again, I put a link there from the Washington Post that explains that a little bit more. Again, these are some of the details from the England and Wales police. And this is the size of police anabolic steroids seizures. It's published by D. Clark on February 28th, 2020. And the stats show the size of anabolic steroid seizures by police forces in England and Wales in 2017-18, where the majority of seizures were amounts under the 50 dose mark, though there was one seizure over 10,000 doses. In total, there were a total of 435 anabolic steroid seizures over this 12-month period, so it is quite a lot. So, just recently, on the 16th of November 2020, so only just a few months back now when I'm recording this, the Rodchenkov Anti-Doping Act was approved by the US Senate, making it, as I quote, unlawful to knowingly influence or attempt to conspire to influence a major international sports competition by use of a prohibited substance or prohibited method. So this was named after Gregory Rodchenkov, the former director of Moscow's anti-doping lab, which was WADA accredited, who blew the whistle on some of Russia's biggest doping scams to help athletes avoid positive tests during the Sochi Olympic Games in 2014. That's the winter one. This law calls for fines up to $1 million and prison sentences up to 10 years for those who participate in schemes designed to influence international sports competitions through doping. There we go. So again, that was quite a huge piece of news coming out of America. So they're really taking a very strong stance against dopers and making sure that they're sending a message that if you're going to cheat, these are the punishments you will end up getting, and that's at all levels of sport. So it'll be interesting what other countries would follow suit, or how other national anti-doping agencies follow, or WADA follow suit as well. So WADA's education and prevention strand. So WADA offers many different tools to assist their stakeholders with their education programs and help them with educating target groups with relevant activities. There are toolkits of activities customized for coaches, teachers, program officers, and whatnot, providing many different brochures with anti-doping information. And this could be aimed at Parents' Guide, Dangers of Doping, At a Glance series, doping control process, athletes' own testimonials, quizzes, toolkits, games, books, whatnot. So again, on the site, they've got a range of different programs. They've got the anti-doping e-learning, or ADEL, and they've got different programs such as like the Alpha Online program gives athletes information about the dangers of doping. ADL is the main sort of dashboard that covers all these programs. And again, you've got these ones here called Coach True, the Sports Physician's Toolkit. And again, they're more aimed at different types of, individuals within the sporting arena. So the physician being the like doctors, physios, more like the rehab, the injury side, the training side. Then you got the actual coaches side as well. Then you got the athlete side too. So you got the course for everyone really, and it's very good for like setting out in terms of continual personal development for teams and coaches and staff. So you got the World Anti-Doping Science and Medical strand. So WADA's responsibilities in the science and medical fields include, among others, the accreditation of anti-doping labs, science research, the prohibited list, and the Athlete Biological Passport and Therapeutic Use Exemptions, or TUE. So this was their core activities, and they developed a 4-year plan. And this obviously finished up in 2020. So looking for the newest one. So they want to look at enhancing the rules, capacity building, social science research and education, accrediting, monitoring labs, scientific research with particular focus on the athlete biological passport and prevalence, then developing ADAMS. Then also the new was the ADO compliance, intelligence investigations, and the whistleblower program. Now, whenever we talk about doping, in terms of like the science and education, it's always important to make reference to gene doping. So on the negative side, the huge advances in gene therapy, which is great, as this is one of the ways of introducing genes into humans to treat life-threatening diseases, ailments. But also, unfortunately, it's been seen by some to allow new ways to dope by introducing genes not to cure disease, but rather enhance athletic performance. Genes control the function of cells, blood-producing tissues, and the ways in which our bodies utilize energy. And we know that through gene doping. Those genes can be manipulated. The advances in methods to introduce new genes to cure are more or less identical to the methods that might be imagined for sport enhancement. This fact makes the likelihood of attempting at gene doping pretty high, and it could be on the verge of seeing it more in sports. And also put down a couple of really good articles there from the World Anti-Doping Community on gene doping. So there's one there on their actual website, and then there was one in their playthrough section. It was a magazine article honing in on the ins and outs of gene doping. So the ABP, or the Athlete Biological Passport, is the next. But again, this is still relatively new, and this is the fundamental principle of the Athlete Biological Passport is to monitor the selected biological variables over time that indirectly reveal the effects of doping rather than attempting to detect the doping substance or method itself. Anti-doping organizations can integrate the Athlete Biological Passport into the larger framework of a robust anti-doping program in order to, firstly, identifying target athlete sport specific analytical testing by intelligent and timely interpretation of passport data. Secondly, pursue possible anti-doping rule violations based on an atypical passport. In accordance with Article 2.2 of the World Anti-Doping Code, the use or attempted use by an athlete of a prohibited substance or prohibited method of the World Anti-Doping Code. So what this really means is that if I have an athlete biological passport, they will take my bloods, my urines, my hormone levels at certain points of the year in and around competition, and the more they do it, the better the passport gets. The better the passport gets means it becomes more reliable and more accurate. Same way they do more testing on you. And if they were to retest you after a year or so and they find, oh, your testosterone or your number of red blood cells, for example, could be way higher than normal. Oh, I wonder why. What's the reason? And then that sort of warrants them to investigate more and do more testing around that. It also increases the likelihood of getting a successful test catching someone out, and or more target specific testing, so the money can be directed towards those who they think are going to cheat, or there's a good enough evidence of both biological data or behavior or the way the athlete's been performing in their sport. They've drastically improved, for example. So it's just another way of catching athletes out. Then we on to TUE forms, or therapeutic use exemption forms. Again, some of you may have heard of this before. And again, obviously, athletes are human beings, and some athletes have illnesses or conditions, ailments that require them to take particular medicines to allow them to compete. If the medication an athlete is required to take is to treat an illness, and that illness happens to fall under the prohibited list or the banned substance list, a therapeutic use exemption form may give the athlete the authorization to take their needed medication. The purpose of the International Standard for Therapeutic Use Exemptions is to ensure that the process of granting TUEs is harmonised across all sports and countries, so everyone's practicing off the same hymn sheet, so to speak. Okay, so we got WADA's Anti-Doping Administration and Management System, or ADAMS for short. And again, this is simply a portal for athletes to go on and list all their details about where they currently are, where they currently train, and it makes it easier for coaches, national anti-doping organizations, and WADAs to build their profile of their own athlete, and for the athlete to work with WADA. So WADA is not trying to work against the athlete and hinder them from their own training or be a nuisance. It's trying to work with them to create this pro anti-doping environment. So ADAMS was developed for this purpose. It is a web-based database management system that simplifies the daily activities of all stakeholders and athletes involved in the anti-doping system. ADAMS is a clearinghouse where all the data can be stored, in particularly lab results, therapeutic use exemptions, and information of anti-doping rule violations, or ADRVs. It facilitates the sharing of information amongst relevant organizations and promotes efficiency, transparency, and effectiveness in all anti-doping activities. Okay, so then we go into WADA's 2018 stats. So again, from the image here on screen, we've got the table. So it goes by all the labs on the left-hand side. So we got labs in Turkey, Greece, Spain, Germany, Cuba, Finland, UK, whatnot. Then we've got obviously samples by urine and blood. So we've got the samples in the left-hand column. So we've then got so we go at ATF and AAF. So ATF is atypical finding and AAF is adverse analytical finding. Okay, so whenever you see these here sampled, so one example is, let's say Turkey one, you've got 3751 total samples. You don't have any ATF, but we got in the AAF 59. That means adverse. Okay, so something that's definitely being flagged up here. We have to check this out. Whereas you go to Greece, you got 5 in the ATF. That means, okay, there could be 5 possible ones. Let's just retest just to be sure. It's just more to go back and check things. So it could be just an error in the test itself, or it could be something was highlighted that's like, I'm not sure. Maybe you just investigate the athlete a little bit more. But if it's under the AAF, that means, okay, we've caught someone. Something has come back positive here. And again, I've got obviously the link, a little bit more of the testing and figures in a PDF there. And again, obviously, these sort of AAFs would become under here as well. And then this was mainly under the presence of a prohibited substance or its metabolites or markers in an athlete's sample. So that's going to be the reason why all of these ones here are coming up. Okay, so it's always fair that to 2.1 when you're looking at the actual stats. Okay, so there's the most up-to-date one in terms of 2017 anti-doping rule violations ADRVs reports. So it was received by WADA 31st of May 2019. So of those 2,749 adverse analytical findings, 1,459 were confirmed as ADRVs. 275 samples were dismissed because of a valid medical reason. Again, athletes have a TUE form, grants them access, that's fine. 123 samples were categorized as no case to answer, i.e. the case closed for a valid reason other than medical. Yep. 120 samples resulted in no sanction because the athlete was exonerated, and 772 are still pending. Again, just gives you an idea of how they're categorized and what works and stuff. So if you are taking medicines and you do come back positive and they say it, but you've already explained it, you're on this medication or such and such, they'll say, yep, that's fine, not a problem. So it's always important you have your TUE in use. So of this sample, 1,135 are male, 324 are female, 89 across 89 sports. 111 nationalities were identified in the sample. Total of 2,222 reported from in competition, which led to 1,163 ADRVs, and 527 reported as out of competition, which led to 296. So what that means is they did the test in comp, so immediately after the race or event, or out of comp, they tested them at their hotel, their home, or their training event. So just so you understand where that's coming from. Okay, so the sports with the highest number of anti-doping rule violations are bodybuilding, 266, athletics, 242, cycling, 218, weightlifting, 123, powerlifting, 101, football, 78, wrestling, 57, rugby union, 54, boxing, 49, aquatics, 32. Athletes' nationalities. So the top 10 nationalities was Italy, 171, France, 128, United States of America, 103, Brazil, 84, Russia, 82, China, 62, India, 57, Belgium, 54, Spain, 52, and South Africa, 43. Now, somebody probably thinking, well, why is Russia like only fifth there? You know, they're always flagged as being the ones who cheat all the time. The thing you have to remember, it's like you have to look across all sports. You have to do it as like a combined score. But if I was breaking down into sports only, athletics, Russia would be right at the top for obviously recent news everyone's been hearing about. Or if it was by the sports that Russian athletes get caught most in, again, they'd be further up there as well. So you have to remember it's by all sports, by all genders too. So again, it's the way that the stats are represented. So Russia in this case are in terms of their country's fifth in the list of top countries who have doped in 2017 or committed anti-doping rule violations. And the comparison of the actual years from 2013 to 2017 in terms of doping whatnot, so the colors, let's go blue, 2013, that's the dark blue, red 2014, green 2015, purple 2016, and light blue 2017. So what we can see is the adverse analytical findings has obviously increased, then dropped off for the year of 2017, but it's still higher than all previous years, bar the year 2016. Analytical ADRVs, again, all here, non-analytical ADRVs, total ADRVs, then the different nationalities. Again, that's fairly consistent across it, and the sports as well, fairly consistent across it, with only 2016 picking up a few extra sports there as well. Okay, so now we're going to our national anti-doping bodies. So for us, this is the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, which conducts all testing on British sport. However, UK anti-doping, it can be loaned out or sent its staff to other nations or other sporting events across the world, either acting in an advisor capacity at events, training days, whatnot. And they've got, and their website's very, very, very useful too. They've got a list of all their athletes currently banned, for what violation and under what sport, and the length of ban as well. It's the homepage. So again, they put up their annual reports, their policies. You know, they would, just like any other national anti-doping organization, they also update their prohibited list from WADA's site. So when WADA posts a document, UKAD and WADA will also post it as well. And again, they've got a couple of the campaigns here. So their main one's 100% Me, where it's all about like young athletes and being told by, you know, Olympians, coaches, whatnot, that it should be 100% you. You're not putting anything else into your body, and you know what you're putting into your body. They've got Clean Sport Week, you know, making people aware of the dangers of doping, promoting anti-doping behaviors, whatnot. And the current war is Gen Z steroid use. This is like a digital style campaign. So again, they've got the report against all attached and links here as well. And that's about image, performance enhancing drug use in the UK, looking at males and females, different behaviors and habits around it. Okay, so you've got the sanctions here. And they've got their own free education site as well. It's got the Coach Clean course and Clean Sport Advisor course, both brilliant courses. And again, if you're interested in learning a little more about doping and anti-doping behaviours, I advise you to go and click on these here links as well. Okay, so as I said at the very start of this here lecture, we've got obviously a drug test in action. So the video, the YouTube links there is 20 minutes long about. So obviously I'm not going to play it for you to just see it. So right here now, I want you to pause it, then just go ahead and follow the actual link, then make some notes on, see what the key things are, what they're looking for, and then we can obviously explain it in a little bit more detail after. So the reason why I'm not opening any links throughout is because I have no idea if they actually work or not in terms of under the recording here. That's something I have to keep trying out and stuff. But this one, the link here is brilliant, just shows you how your drug test is carried out when obviously the staff from your NDO or WADA would meet you, how you work with you. They explain the whole testing procedure with you, how urine is taken, blood's taken, whatnot, how it's analysed and whatnot. Okay, so as many of you, you can check if your supplements, medications are safe. And there are a few websites that check the validity and reliability of this. So you got Informed Sport, and then you got a link on UKAD and WADA site around medications and substances and supplements. Again, they're all linked there. But the main one would be Global Dro. So Global Dro is checking all medicines that are safe to take. And again, Informed Sports, you may see that Informed Sport badge on like protein bags or supplements in the UK. It's like an orange circle with like a black tick. And that just shows that obviously that this is being batch tested. It is safe to take. So as well, if you're searching for a peer-reviewed site to look at the literature of your supplements and you want it for a small free, and obviously this may have changed in recent years, but again, so I found a very useful site in comparing the different impacts of supplements, medicines on your training, general health, well-being, whatnot. Head to examine.com. Again, they combine all the best research papers out there into like an easy guide based on the supplement or macronutrient or nutrients. For example, protein, all the papers on it, the best way, what the best protocols are and stuff for recovery, creatine, etc., etc. Again, examine.com, very useful site. Okay. So what can UKAD, Doping and WADA offer you? So as I said, throughout free education learning via the e-learning sites, covering how a test takes place to rules and regs on doping, helping athletes get a TUE form, therapeutic use exemption form. So if an athlete has a medical reason for taking X amount of medicines before or after a journey or during a sporting event, and again, they can take them without breaking any rules or be fined or banned from sport. They've got plenty of free apps to keep you aware of what is and what isn't not allowed in competition. This is on their prohibited list. And obviously make yourself known to WADA via an athlete whereabouts form, ADAMS, so testers can find out where you can train and work and shows a transparency of being a clean athlete. Okay, so again, have a break for 10 to 15 minutes. So what I'll do is just pause it here and then we'll just continue on with the actual slides. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, welcome back. I hope you had a really good break. So onto task 3. So again, just on your piece of paper next to you, what do you think, or what can facilitate an athlete or athletes to dope? So why would an athlete want to dope? Why would they want to take drugs to, okay? And then just to take a few minutes, pause it, then write down your answers, then unpause it, and we'll continue on with the actual slides. So a dopogenic environment. So a dopogenic environment is to acknowledge the sum of influences produced by the surroundings, opportunities and conditions that promote anti-doping rule violations, ADRVs, as we talked earlier about. Local level factors would be your team, your sports clubs, your home, your neighborhood, your school. And they work alongside structural factors such as education systems, national and international sporting organizations, health systems, government policies, and societal attitudes and beliefs to create the dopogenic milieu. This shifts attention away from a focus on individual morality, ethics, and shortcomings towards the powerful interactions between individuals, their social networks, and the structures that direct how athletes live and make decisions. This is all taken from Backhouse, Griffiths, and McKenna 2018, Tackling Doping in Sport, a call to take action on the dopogenic environment. Very good. So the personal motivations and pressures why someone would dope. So we're going to take my sport of powerlifting as the example throughout. But do think about your own sport as we're doing this. So why do powerlifters take drugs? So some of the physiological reasons. So mask injury, reduce tiredness, lose weight, train harder to build muscle, increase energy. Could argue to increase oxygen transport as well, so they're better able to hold oxygen when they're strained under a heavy weight, so they don't pass out. You could argue that obviously the most obvious one, which isn't there, is to get stronger. Again, from the more psychological reasons, to increase aggression, so they can lift the barbell with more force, to increase their motivation, and to calm their own nerves. Again, all possible reasons. And the social reasons, they're prepared to win at all costs. They have a belief that everyone else is doing it around them. They have a fear of not winning, so they want to win at all costs. By winning, they can earn big money, prize money, sponsorship, whatnot. And there's perhaps a pressure to win from coaches, peers, family, and the media as well. So research on the motivations to cheat. Personality traits and performance-enhancing drugs, the dark triad, and doping attitudes among competitive athletes. This was by Nichols, Madkin, Backhouse, and Levy 2017. Again, really good paper on this. And they looked at how doping attitudes correlate positively with machiavellism, psychopathy, and narcissism. Machiavellism and psychopathy explain 29% in the variance of doping attitudes. And again, I've attached some more papers on this. You can read it through. Now, potentially the most dope sporting event in history would have been the men's 100-meter final in 1988 in Seoul, as always, in South Korea. So I've again attached a link to the actual event and where they explain a little bit more. So this is from minute 37, 8 seconds to 38 minutes. 50 seconds there, and again it's from the film Bigger, Stronger, Faster. Some of you may have watched this, and again they sort of talk about how majority of these athletes have been caught cheating, or how some people bent the rules to allow them to go ahead and compete. So again, we just expand this in a little bit more detail, how it was everyone bar one was actually, so everyone bar two since that event have been caught cheating or being banned in some way, shape, or form. That'd be a lifetime ban or a short-term ban, suspension. Yeah. So again, literally, you can pause it here and then you can just read it all as well. Just makes it a bit easier. Feel free to zoom in on the screen if it's easier too. However, this title, the most dope race, was passed onto the women's 2005 1500 meter event and then onto the same event again in 2012. Again, the majority of these athletes have all been caught doping in that event or post-event as well. So we can sort of see doping hasn't really gone away since, WADA started out. And again, this is sort of like asked the question on the previous Olympics we've had, was the Rio Olympics any better? So an independent report to the right, so at the right of the screen, so you can see it there, is free. You just have to Google it, which grills and outlines where the Rio Brazil Sports Committee for the 2016 Olympic Games failed or let its standards slip. And the BBC also made a report, and it is quite funny, some of the findings and stuff. So again, this is from the report in the previous link on the BBC page. This is just a screenshot from it. So it said nearly 100 samples were not matched to any athlete because of data entry errors. one missing sample was not located until 2 weeks after the games. Again, it probably isn't even the athlete sample. It's probably been contaminated, replaced, whatnot. So it's useless. There was little or no in-competition blood testing in many high-risk sports and disciplines such as weightlifting, which is strange. There was no out-of-competition testing conducted in football, which WADA found surprising, in inverted commas. There was almost 500 fewer tests conducted than organisers had planned during the games. Without the dedication of doping control staff, the anti-doping programme would have almost certainly collapsed. And as of the 8th of August 2016, only 4,795 athletes were providing whereabouts information in the anti-doping system, considerably lower than how many athletes were actually attending the Olympics at that time. So then this does open up other questions, and it brings back to a question that was asked years ago. So this is the Goldman Dilemma. So 198 athletes were asked in 1980s, I think it was 83, 84. They were asked, would you take a magic drug that meant you would win every competition you entered, but would kill you 5 years after taking it? Out of those athletes, 103 said yes. So that was 52%. But then the Goldman Dilemma was revisited in 2013. And again, 212 of the athletes were asked, would you take the magic drug that meant you win an Olympic gold medal, but it would kill you after 5 years taking it? Only 2 athletes said yes, and that was Connor Wolf and Mazanov. But again, you have to look at it this way, what all sports, were these athletes, were they all competitive athletes? Were they all young? Were they old? You know, what country were they from? What age were they? I think obviously this is going to affect the answers greatly across it. So I think if you're asking very young athletes, you know, answering them on their own without families around, perhaps the number would have been skewed higher, more saying yes. Or those athletes, you know, who just really want to win. Again, it depends on the personality too. So again, it's just something to bear in mind. If you ever get asked, you know, the Goldman Dilemma, or you see like other research on it, always look at the methods and the samples. Again, I think it's a very interesting question to ask people. Would they prepare to take a magic drug to win everything, but they would then die early on just to win a gold medal? Again, some of people's answers may surprise you. So, as you probably gathered, cheating and doping hasn't really gone away. Has it always been around? And yes, probably more so now, or we're more aware of it through likes of social media, the World Wide Web and whatnot. However, it is human nature to cheat, unfortunately, and some people use drugs. Some use a car to win a marathon, like they hop in a car halfway through a marathon to win a race, or they jump on a bus, done before, or others hire a hitman to break your opponent's legs. And obviously that was the Tonya Harding incident attack on Nancy Kerrigan and the aftermath, which I put a link to. Crazy story. If you haven't heard about it, read it. Really, really crazy. It's about someone hiring a hitman to beat their opponent. And that was in a Winter Olympic sport, it was ice rake skating. And obviously I've put a link there of funny cases of people trying to cheat in sport. And obviously, out of all this sort of cheating and obviously WADA getting better, more effective, we've actually got this new thing of retesting samples and returning medals to athletes now. So the international governing body of each Olympic sport can also strip athletes of medals for infractions of the rules within their sport. So from October 1968 to September 2020, a total of 147 medals have been stripped, with 9 medals declared vacant rather than being reallocated after being stripped. So this would mean there'd be a four-step process. Step 1, the legal procedure. Step 2, the preparation of the IOC, the board decision. Then step 3, the board's results of the decision. Then 4, the medal reallocation to the athlete, that being at another event or just in their own home and whatnot. So again, I put a couple of links here, a little more information on what the process is. So to give you some more context, when I was at the WADA conference 2019 in Poland, there was a medal reallocation ceremony for the Polish hammer thrower, where she got silver in the competition, but then they upgraded to gold for her. And obviously it was quite a big thing, not only having the conference in that athlete's home country, but seeing all her coaches, athletes, fellow countrymen, coaching staff, and their Olympic committee, all there was a huge thing. So I can understand the great importance of it. So yeah, somebody's probably thinking, well, why so many medals have been returned? Testing is just getting better. So Lance Armstrong and other cyclists in that era did so well was also due to the fact there wasn't a test for EPO at the time. And now there's new methods such as free storage and dry storage that keep samples for longer or retain their metabolite profile. Testing has to match the dopers, and unfortunately, sometimes the dopers are ahead of the testers, but that gap is getting smaller. Blood samples are better than urine samples for two reasons, as they can be stored for longer and obviously provide more detail within the sample themselves in terms of substance presence and the athlete's own hormone markers as well. So again, these next few slides, again, they're just for you to read, and this is just some of the brief history of testosterone and doping from the early 1930s to about the 1980s. So again, these are the next 6-7 slides. So you can obviously go back, read these in your own time. So there's slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, slide 4, slide 5, slide 6. Here we go. Oh, sorry. So more research into doping and anti-doping. I would recommend you follow the following links if this is something you want to do for your research projects, dissertations, or for one of your modules. So Professor Susan Backhouse, that's a Google Scholar profile, Dr. Ian Bordley, Google Scholar profile, WADA's own site as well. They publish their own research too. The Journal for the Performance Enhancement of Health, they got a range of papers covering doping, anti-doping, why people would socially use these drugs and whatnot. And then Dr. Katinka van de Ven, again, really good academics here. The journal site, brilliant too. This is kind of where I would read up most of my stuff as well. Okay, so we're going to state-sponsored doping. So state-sponsored doping came quite famous via the East Germans. So this was obviously during the Cold War, when also Germany was split into two, and obviously it was East versus West. So the East German doping program was post-World War II. East Germany swept the medal table, international events and Olympics. The reason why East Germans really focused on sport was a way to get East Germany on the map, as showing, the communist country can compete with the Western countries. We're just as good, if not better. But they really put a lot of science and education into, athlete profiling, trying to find, okay, what athletes should be good at what sports. But then also, along with all the training, they would use a heavy amount of substances to get these athletes better. So one example of this was during the female swimming events as the medal ceremonies were taking place. The Americans went so far as criticizing the low voices, so the deep voices of some of the DDR girls or East German girls. But as a DDR official said, we came here to swim, not to sing. They had other things as well where, like, the training and the drug programs were so intense. They had swimmers swimming uphill, but the way that they built the tank would angle, so they'd be swimming against the current. They had ones where the whole rowing team was using it, but then you heard horror stories, such as you would find people training, then as they get out the pool or the gym, they just find one of their training partners just lying dead in the corner or just passed out because they're breaking down their bodies so badly. And the doping was so bad, and I can't emphasize enough that some of the female athletes end up looking like men then due to the amount of testosterone and hormones that are being pumped inside their own body. So the picture here is the former German shot putter Andreas Krieger, who competed as a woman, Heidi Krieger, on the East German athletics team, and poses with a picture of himself in 1986. So the picture within the frame here is of Heidi Krieger, but this is now Andreas, obviously having to change their identity due to just how much their body actually changed. So the most modern state-sponsored doping evolving from East Germany would be Russia. Again, also this is the most common one in the news of late. And also you got Putin, doping scandal, ethics. We can always appreciate a good political cartoon here and there. So this is the modern state-sponsored doping nation. Obviously, there are others, but Russia just don't really seem to care to hide it, and they're more frequent than others. It is very difficult to keep up with the news in Russia because, again, you don't know if other countries are using this political agenda to try and portray them as just always constantly bad, as being the worst nation at it. Whereas when we look at the stats broken down as a nation, they're the fifth worst. They're not the worst, but based on certain sports, they are the worst, such as athletics and the Winter Olympics, whatnot. So again, it's about perception and looking where the correct analysis is done. So again, I put in a couple of further extra links, videos, and a link to a Guardian article explains a little bit more. And can't urge you enough, if you haven't seen it yet, watch Icarus on Netflix. Brilliant documentary. Ties in with the Grigory Rodchenkov, the gentleman who's now got that Anti-Doping Control Act in the USA in place. So it's about a guy, Ben Fogel, who wanted to race in this amateur Tour de France event and show how he can cheat and beat the system, just trying to show how easy it was. And he gets put into contact with Gregory to help him. But along the journey, it turns into Gregory having to go to Ben for help and flee his country, and this spirals in this whole anti-doping story case, and it is just wild. So this really opens the whole inside and backstory of how the lab works, how Gregory got his role. Really, really fascinating. So if you're into your sports science or your politics, this is really, really good. So, as I said earlier, does Russia really lead the world in doping? So WADA published anti-doping rule violations report. While Russia does have the highest number of positive samples, you could say, it also has the highest number for total samples. So why are Russian athletes getting tested more than any other country? We don't know, but what we do know is that the amount of net positive samples is meaningless. What we do need to look at is the ratio between positive samples and total samples per country. This ratio would represent better which country is a bigger doper. And obviously, this was based on the report from 2014, but it's just to bear in mind. And then, so this was based in 2014. Anti-doping rule violations report by WADA, so the ADRVs. So Russia, it's down here. It's quite low. So as an ADRV nation, it's quite compliant. Works very hard. It's right up there with Australia. Kazakhstan's better than Czech Republic, Spain, and Norway. The Norwegians, all the Scandinavians have been praised as being, very, very good. A range of things. And again, they're only just behind Canada, Portugal, Switzerland, USA, UK. China's one of the most compliant as well, which some may argue that isn't true. But then the worst one is Iran. Again, you could argue they just don't have a good anti-doping team there. That I think that could be solved. A lot of that could be halved with having an effective anti-doping team, like being trained by one of the better nations there. That could be it. Okay, next task. So again, saying this before, I'll read it out. You guys make the notes, pause it. 5 minutes spend on it, then unpause, continue on the slides. So task 4. So can anyone name any example of an athlete claiming they didn't cheat, then came out that she actually cheated? Okay, so you've all worked down potential athletes. Let's see if any of them has come out. So we've got some funny doping stories here. We've got Mark Bosniak, if I pronounce that correctly, the Chelsea and Australia goalkeeper who was suspended for 9 months in 2002 after testing positive for cocaine, showed he not only had a competitive spirit on the pitch but also snorting the banned substance. Whilst explaining away his use of legal drug, he claimed that he was only trying to teach his wife a lesson. He said, "I told her that for every line of cocaine she took, I would take 2, and that's exactly what I did." Years later, Bosniak admitted he had struggled with the cocaine habit. Sarah Irani was banned for 2 months after the former world number 5 in women's tennis player returned a positive test of out of out of competition sample given while at her parents' house in February 2017. The sample contained a chemical called letrozole, which, though used in treatment of breast cancer, has also been associated with the promotion of muscle tissue in female bodybuilders. Irani, though, managed to convince an international tennis tribunal that she ingested a banned substance via her mother's tortellini. If I was getting anabolic pasta, I would like to know where, and I think every bodybuilder will be buying it in bulk. Again, Richard Gasquet, this is again in tennis. So for the Male Tennis Federation, he was handed a 12-month ban in May 2009 after testing positive for cocaine. The Frenchman, though, claimed he ingested the banned substance after kissing a woman in a nightclub. 2 months after being banned, the ITF overturned the 12-month ban after a tribunal swallowed Gasquet's excuse. So again, some people may have very good lawyers in winning these cases. So we got Peter Korda, after having the ban steroid naltrexone found in the system during the 1998 Wimbledon Championships, he came up with a novel excuse. He liked veal, an awful lot it seems as well. While young calves are fattened on the steroid, experts said that Korda would have to have eaten 40 of the animal a day to have ingested the levels found in his body. Unsurprisingly, the International Tennis Federation rejected his excuse and his 1-year ban, which effectively ended his career. Again, we got Alberto Contador. You remember I said to him at the very start of the class, looking at CAS cases. Well, this is one of the case it's referring to. So the Spanish cyclist had tested positive for the banned substance clenbuterol. Like Korda, Contador claimed the field drug test after eating contaminated steak. Despite CAS sport finding Contador probably tested positive due to contaminated food supplement, the Spaniard was handed a 2-year ban whilst having his third yellow jersey stripped from his shoulders. Again, this one was a very strange excuse to give. So the USA Anti-Doping Agency detected someone else's red blood cells in Tyler Hamilton's blood. So Tyler Hamilton was one of the cyclists who would cycle with Lance Armstrong during the US postal team when they were when they were world renowned, beating everyone. The cyclist came up with an imaginative excuse. Of course he did. Hamilton claimed the cells belonged to a vanishing twin who died in the womb, an explanation considered theoretically possible but unlikely by medical experts. Despite being initially allowed to keep his 2004 Olympic time trial gold medal, because his second sample was untestable after being damaged in the lab, Hamilton, he was banned for 2 years in 2005 after a second positive test before being later handed an 8-year ban following another positive test. Then so you can sort of see these are the type of excuses people would then tend to come out with. So we've got LaShawn Merritt's excuse. We've got the North Korea women's football team, Justin Gatlin. So again, I'll let you read them in time, but you get an idea. Some of these excuses are just really stupid. But again, they happen, and this leads on to the next question. But why are dopers still allowed to compete? So again, write down your thoughts. Just pause it here, 5 minutes, write down your thoughts, then come back and we'll continue on with the last few slides and finish up. So why do dopers cheat? There's various reasons, money, fame, they want to keep representing their country. They don't want to lose, they want to keep winning. Pressure from coaches, family, whatnot, this whole range of things. It all goes back to this dopogenic environment, which Professor Susan Backhouse and colleagues were talking about earlier on. And again, just go back, reread that paper, gives you more information. But is doping too harsh? Again, Scottish alpine skier Alan Baxter's joy at winning bronze medal at the 2002 Winter Games in Salt Lake City was tempered by the news that trace quantities of a banned substance had been detected in his system. Baxter claimed with evidence that the methamphetamines, there we are, came from a Vicks inhaler he used to treat a blocked up nose. Baxter was disqualified from the competition, but the fourth place skier refused to accept his bronze medal, saying that he did not believe that Scott was a cheat, like the majority of us. It's just from a Vicks inhaler. Like, it's not as if he was putting, rocket boosters on his skis, anything like that. International Ski Federation also accepted Baxter's explanation, handed him a 3-month ban, the minimum they could impose. So again, it is a hard one. You know, the rules apply to everyone. There can't be any grey areas, because as soon as if they're to allow this, it opens up other athletes who did intentionally cheat, and if they were caught cheating, they could say, well, you allowed them, but he was cheating, you didn't ban them. So I can understand why they took such a strong case against it, but you know, I will say it does say a lot about the other athletes, especially the fourth place athlete, when, you know, they'd say, listen, it's games based on skill. It's not based on, if you take a Vixen Heather, you become a better athlete. But fortunately, rules are rules. So to conclude this online webinar, again, firstly, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. If you have any comments and queries, well, in terms particularly on the sound, the audio, do let me know. My details will be further on, which we'll go into in a second. But just to summarize, so this is a section of quotes from Lance Armstrong, the 7-time Tour de France winner, who's eventually admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs. And these are the key dates, what he's saying over the course of his career until he actually admitted it. So July 1999, I've been on my deathbed. Normally he's battling cancer, that's what he's referring to. I've been on my deathbed and I'm not stupid. I can empathetically say I'm not on drugs. January 2001. The simple truth is that we outwork everyone, but when you perform at a high level in a race, you get questions about doping. January 2004, I have never had a single positive doping test. I do not take performance-enhancing drugs. November 2005, how many times do I have to say it? Well, it can't be any clearer than I've never taken drugs. July 2010, as long as I live, I will deny it. There was absolutely no way I forced people, encouraged people, told people, helped people, facilitate people. Absolutely not. 100%. I'm clean. In January 2013, all the fault and all the blame here falls on me. I viewed the situation as one big lie that I repeat a lot of times. I made my decisions, they are my mistakes, and I'm sitting here today to acknowledge that and to say that I'm sorry for that. So, conclusion of today's lesson. So we've covered what is doping and anti-doping, looked at WADA and UK anti-doping, history of doping and state-sponsored doping from the East Germany Democratic Republic to Russia, why people dope, what causes doping, cases of doping, and multiple tasks throughout, just to get you to think and challenge the topic of doping and anti-doping. So what's going to happen next? So as I said, I attended the World Anti-Doping 5th Annual Conference on Doping in Poland in 2019 in November. And again, I've made a couple of posts about this just on my blog here. So strength training for you, and again, some of the most recent ones. And again, just my sort of thoughts and notes from the events, what things are going to be going forward. You may find that of use. And again, it's a good Instagram page you should follow here. So there's Anti-Doping Science on Instagram. And again, these are some of them. These are the most recent anti-doping cases. So, International Weightlifting Federation hid 130 samples. Ex-USA weightlifter discusses doping in the sport firsthand. He published a book. Dr. Gregory Rodchenkov, again, that was also the most recent news. Whenever writing these slides, again, all about the Rodchenkov Act, and then a US boxer claims his positive test was caused by having sex. Again, some of the reference list, websites all used here. Okay, so some podcasts with videos which I think are very, very good. So Joe Rogan, everyone knows the GRE podcast on Spotify. He's got, that could be still up, I'm not sure, but it definitely ought to be a Spotify podcast where he's with Lance Armstrong, number 737. Number 277s with Victor Conte. He was in charge of the Balco Labs. That was with the Marion Jones case. Joe Rogan, 1019 with Brian Fogel, director of the Icarus movie. Again, really good. Again, Joe Rogan with the Bells Brothers and the Powerlifting discussing Bigger, Stronger, Faster movie as well. And then from the other side, Joe Rogan, number 685 with Jeff Nowitzki. He was one of the main guys to take down Lance Armstrong, but now works with UFC to really clean up MMA. Again, some videos and films, whole range of things here, really, really good. Again, some books I think are quite useful. The Run, Swim, Throw, Cheat, and The Secret Race are two of my favorite ones, just in terms of stories. But for like actual theory, anabolic steroids, sport and exercise, brilliant book there. And again, Anti-Doping and Crisis in Sport and The Global History of Doping are quite good too. But then for more like, the image and social uses of drugs, like bodybuilding, looking good for Instagram, social media. Again, this sort of book here by Smith, Stewart, Westbrook, and Stavros. Ah, yes, and more on anti-doping code. Paul David's book, really, really good too. But that's it. Thank you very much. Again, if you want to get in touch, it's just a.s.richardson@tees.ac.uk. And again, hope you all find that very, very useful and have a great 2021 and stay safe. Thank you.